This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by the Authority brand family of herbicides from FMC. With 3 proven herbicide options, growers can choose extended pre-seed or pre-emergent weed control designed to fit different weed spectrums, cropping plans, and spring workloads. Talk to your local retailer to learn more.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Also, of course, huge shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast as well. We've got an extended version of the podcast, the show today, for all of you based on a lot of the content we're trying to squeeze into today's show indeed. Okay. What we're going to do is I am in what looks like, if you're watching on YouTube, a basement in the Hamilton Theatre in Cambridge, Ontario. I'm at a Secan soybean dealer event. Looking forward to it. I've been on the stage at this event for probably 5 or 6 years running now. It's always a great audience. Looking forward to it. The opening speaker today was Darrell Bricker. He is the CEO of IPSOS, and he's going to do a sit-down interview with us here today. And we're going to break down some of the things that he sees happening demographically, from an income perspective, from a productivity standpoint. What are the numbers telling us that are guiding politicians in Canada in relation to, obviously, trade and domestic challenges and just the whole gamut. We're going to piece it all together. He's going to be with us for a couple segments and looking forward to that. We've also got our product spotlight today. Chad Garrod is going to be with us from Corteva. Looking forward to that. And we're going to finish up today with some big news from Nutrien. Chris Reynolds is going to be with us from Nutrien. They're putting the whole shebang together. We got Nutrien Ag Retail and Nutrien, the fertilizer manufacturer. They are putting her back together, and it's going to be one company. So Chris is leading the customer experience of that, and we'll hear from him today on the why and the what and all the sort of details on that, and that full interview will be available in the RealAg Radio podcast version of the show. Now, if you have any feedback on today's show, you can send me an email. Would love to hear from you. Want your feedback? shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call or text the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. I do want to alert you that I've posted a new episode of the Frontlines podcast. That's my monthly interview with Jacob Shapiro of this Bespoke Group. And we recorded it last Friday afternoon. So a bit of a timestamp on it because things in the geopolitical world are changing so fast, and you just try to keep up with all of it. In that, we talk about what's his reaction to Prime Minister Mark Carney's speech in Davos. What's his reaction to some of the things that he said in there in terms of Canada aligning with the middle powers against both the U.S. and China battling it out, and all those middle powers, Canada, Europe, the UK being kind of stuck in the middle. Did everybody kind of jump in with him? Or did people kind of say, oh, that was nice, Mark, great speech, but you're on your own there, bud? So we'll get Jacob's thoughts on that. Also, what's going on between the U.S. and Iran. And we'll talk about the U.S. and Cuba, U.S. Venezuela, just give a full update on all the things that are happening in the world of geopolitics, because it does come back and definitely impact the world of agriculture. There is no doubt. Like I said, I'm in Cambridge, Ontario today. And tonight, I'm going to be going to Nashville, Tennessee for the NCBA Cattle Con. Looking forward to that. It's always a great meeting. There's going to be some serious money in that room. The cattle producers, one of the demographics of agriculture that has definitely got some money in their pockets. They've had a good year. So I'm looking forward to hearing some optimism and some upbeat. But where do we go from here is going to be a big question, I think, on the minds of not only the feed yards, the stockers, the backgrounders, and the rancher and the packer indeed. So looking forward to being in Nashville for the rest of the week. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got Darrell Bricker, CEO of IPSOS, standing by to talk to us about all things what he's seen in the data. What is the data telling him about the future of Canada and North America? We're back right after this.
Now that's what I call Crop Protection 2026 edition from BASF. Coming at you with encore-worthy products canola farmers know and love. We've got all your favorite herbicides, Centurion ADV, Certitude, and new Liberty Amp. Plus the headliner of fungicide, Cotegra. If your lineup doesn't sound this good, what are you waiting for? Lock in your set list and get ready to rock! AgSolutions.ca/CanolaFest.
Nearly 600 trials demonstrate that Rhizosorb allows growers to use as much as 50% less phosphorus without compromising yields in major row crops such as corn and soybeans. Multi-year, multi-location replicator research trials demonstrate that Rhizosorb at reduced application rates maintains or increases yields without lowering soil phosphorus levels. If you have additional questions about Rhizosorb, please contact your Phospholutations regional sales manager or visit phospholutations.com.
Co-op has been beside local farmers and ranchers for generations. With Western Canada's largest fuel network and a team of local agronomy experts, Co-op is built to keep your operation moving forward. With deep local knowledge of the factors affecting your farm, we're ready to provide trusted advice in the field and on the ground. Count on Co-op to support your entire operation from season to season. Co-op, here for your farm, here for your family. Visit your Co-op Agro Center to talk to a team member today.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. This segment's brought to you by Oxbow, the latest innovation from New Farm, a versatile broadleaf in-crop herbicide powered by duplasm technology. Oxbow is your workhorse on resistant kochia and other tough weeds. Visit newfarm.ca. Well, I just got off the stage, and like I said, mentioned, we are in Cambridge, Ontario. And we're at a Secan soybean dealer event. We're joined right now by Darrell Bricker, who is the CEO of IPSOS. Darrell, how are you doing?
Great.
It's you enjoying winter? Is it treating you well?
Well, not this winter. It's been a pretty rough winter. But I'm from Cambridge, Ontario, so it's nice to be back in my home stomping grounds.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, a lot of information packed into your address today here to the audience. I guess I'll start off this way. As we sit here in 2026, we just finished the first month of the year. Are Canadians happy? Because I see a lot of concern. I see a lot of trepidation about what the future means. We've got obviously trade issues, economic issues, some challenges around affordability. It's a domestic one here in the country. What's the mood of Canadians right now?
Well, in comparison to Canadians historically, better than it was under the latter years of the Trudeau government, where they were really feeling disaffected from their federal government. But we've made a political adjustment. They're happier with this current version of the Liberal Party led by Mark Carney. But in terms of just life, do we feel that we're on the right track? Do we feel like things are getting better? Are they optimistic about the future? No. They're actually quite concerned. I don't want to say pessimistic. It's not like they've said, I think things are just going to get bad. What they're really concerned about is the uncertainty that seems to be out there and what they're facing. Part of it is what they're dealing with the United States and the changing relationship there. But there's a lot of things that are changing in the world, but also a lot of things that are changing in people's communities that are making people uncomfortable. So I would say that they're uncomfortable, they're concerned, they're nervous, they're anxious, but really negative about the future, not so much.
Sometimes I wonder, the world is definitely changing around us. I was on the drive here this morning. I was listening to Bloomberg, and they had a guest who had just written a book where he was talking about the end of globalization. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's changing around us. Are we changing with it, or are we hanging on to something from yesterday?
No, I think we are changing with it. I think that people are introducing new things into their lives all the time. Whether it comes down to new technology into their lives, new ways of working in the workplace in their lives, new ways of having family relationships that we didn't have before, even new identities. I mean, things that used to be so firmly decided. I mean, there's certain segments of the population that want to reconsider those things. So I would say that there's a lot of turbulence that exists out there, a lot of change that's taking place. Some of them small things in terms of our interpersonal connections, and some of them big things in terms of things like, for example, globalization and great power politics. But yeah, it feels like a turbulent time.
obviously we came off an election in 25 where a lot of things, you mentioned in your speech, a lot of things worked out for the Liberals. Trudeau stepped down. That was disadvantage to the Conservatives. Mark Carney steps in. Canadians identify him as the man to lead Canada versus a pretty hefty trade battle or trade negotiation in front of the country with President Donald Trump. If Kamala Harris had won, it's probably Pierre Poilievre's game. It's funny how all the puzzle pieces kind of came all together.
Yeah, and that's what I was noting for the audience. I mean, if you really want to, step back and look at what happened, it really was a combination of events coming together. The book I'd like somebody to write is, I already have the title for them, so I'll just give it to them right now. It's called 3 Days in December. What really did happen between Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, and Mark Carney? Yeah. Because that changed everything. And, what happened in the United States with Kamala Harris losing the election, and Joe Biden, all the things that happened around that. If these things are different, the outcome of the election is different. Pierre Poilievre lost in basically the only way that he could.
Yeah. Is President Trump Prime Minister Carney's biggest challenge?
Actually, I think that we would like to see that as the challenge that we're dealing with, because as unpredictable as it is, we know what it is. I actually think that something that is going to equal the challenge that he's going to be facing with President Trump is the challenge he's going to be facing with national unity. And it's not just the horizontal type of unity issues that we know we're going to be dealing with a potential referendum in the province of Alberta, potential referendum if the PQ wins in the province of Quebec, throwing our national stability into question. And even if neither of these places decides they want to renegotiate their situation with Canada, it's going to cause a bit of a reset in terms of how our nation works. And it's going to dominate the conversation as we go through that period, along with what's going on in the United States. But the other thing that I pointed out in the presentation today was, the biggest vertical cleavage that we have, and it's between generations. And it's between younger Canadians who live in an economy that they're basically enduring and a life that they're enduring. And then you've got an older group of people who have their elbows up and voted for the Liberal Party for the most part, that are actually living pretty well now and want to preserve and hang on to what they have rather than change, whereas the younger group wants to have change. So that is going to cause some problems as we're moving forward. And we already saw it play out in the last election, where we saw particularly younger men vote for the Conservative Party, whereas before they probably would have voted for the NDP or they would have voted for the Liberals, but they voted for the Conservatives. Usually their parents and grandparents who would have voted for the Conservative Party, and that kind of flipped on its head. And
you said younger women are moving left.
They're moving left. And this isn't just a Canadian phenomena. This is a Western world phenomena. And as younger women move up the educational scale, and in fact, there's more university graduation these days among women than there is among men. And in some faculties, the numbers are, quite stark. As they kind of move into, through that educational process, and the educational process opens them up to the world, and maybe they take on certain progressive points of view, it even becomes more reinforced. So it's not like there's complete unity in the generations either. Younger men and younger women have different outlooks on how things are going.
On the Canadian unity front, I've given a number of speeches in the U.S. lately, and that's one of the top questions that comes from the audience. Like, what is going on in Alberta? Do you have any insights there?
Sure.
I'm curious. Yeah, what are your insights?
Well, you're from Lethbridge, so you have some thoughts on that. I mean, I wrote a book back in 2013 with John Ibbotson called The Big Shift. So you can go get that. And it's really about how Canadian politics changed forever in 2013. And that's that it's now possible to win a national election in which Western Canada gets together with suburban, particularly Toronto, and can win a majority without really having any representation in the province of Quebec. So that's what Stephen Harper did. But what's been happening, and what this is representative of, is the growing power in Canada of the Western population and the Western economy. And as a result of the fact that they felt, and I'm not saying this, the Premier, Daniel Smith, says this, 10 years of very negative circumstances with the Trudeau government, there's a lot of grievance that's been raised, that's been created, combined with now a promise that's been made, they believe, by the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, about how they're going to be able to build a pipeline to Tidewater and further enrich people in the province of Alberta. So there's expectations around that. But also when you look at the economics of how Canada works, by far, the most powerful economic engine that we have in the country today is natural resource products out of Alberta, not just oil and gas, although that's the biggest, but agriculture in Western Canada generally, including in Alberta. And we've spent the last dozen years almost being embarrassed by that fact.
Right.
You know, we want to set up some sort of Silicon Valley North, and it's all about, you know, super clusters and all sorts of things coming out of Ottawa that seem to be very oriented towards the downtowns of the major cities or university towns in our country. And we almost treat, and you know, the previous Minister of the Environment said that, you know, this was a sunset industry, the oil and gas industry in Alberta, and they very much treated it that way. Well, guess what? It's left a bruise. It's left a bruise. It's left a lot of resentment. And the growing power of Alberta in Canada is something that is not necessarily being recognized in our federal system. They thought that they were going to get back in the same way that they did with Stephen Harper in the previous election. It didn't happen, so the anxiety has gone up further.
Yeah, and I sometimes wonder, as of late, we've seen the Prime Minister, I think his strength that comes to him very naturally, based on his prior history at the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, is foreign relations. It's doing that stuff. But domestically, especially on this national unity front, he's got some work to do. Does he need to spend more time on those kinds of issues? Yeah,
100%, because these are the ones that are going to rise up from underneath him and cause his biggest problems.
Like what prime minister would want the separation vote to happen on their watch?
Well, he may end up in that situation. And, you know, it's like any CEO going into any company comes in, and what do? Particularly if they don't come from the industry that they're now expected to run, the business in an industry in a sector that they don't really.
I'm going to go meet with customers.
Well, the number one thing is that they tend to focus on the things that they know best.
Yeah.
It's what they feel comfortable about. So if you hire a person who's previously a CFO and they want to be the CEO, guess what? You've got two CFOs.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what's happened with Mark Carney, right? He wants to focus on the things that he feels most comfortable with, which are all of these international things. And by the way, there's a very good case to be made for doing that. But ultimately, what could eat him up is what's coming from below, which are those horizontal and vertical cleavages that I was talking about, the horizontal one being what's going to happen in Alberta. So, okay, great. So we get the journalists in Ottawa and Toronto saying, oh, this is nothing. We don't need to pay attention. You're not allowed to separate from Canada. You know, the law says this or whatever. Okay, so they hold a referendum. Say they get, I don't know, 45% of the vote or 41% of the vote. What does that say about the future? Nobody's happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
You win, but did you win?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very, very problematic situation in Alberta right now. Do I think, based on the numbers that I see right now, that Alberta separation is a reality? They don't have the votes. I mean, at tops, they're about 30%. But you know what? On Brexit, they started out about around the same spot.
That's the part that I remind people about, is that Brexit didn't start where it finished.
No.
And David Cameron, who was the prime minister at the time, made some bad choices, made a big gamble. Let's take hey, we'll let the people decide. We'll take this to a referendum. And then it actually happened, which really shocked a lot of people. So this isn't something that I think people should just poo-poo. I think more attention needs to be paid to it from a serious perspective.
So let me add one last thing on that, Mike, or unless you've got more you want to
No, go ahead. Yeah.
The character of separatism in Quebec and, say, for example, in Scotland is very different from the character of separatism that existed around Brexit and exists in Alberta.
Well,
so the character in places like Scotland and Quebec, it's about an affirmative statement about national pride.
Identity.
Yeah, it's an identity kind of thing. So they're voting for their identity-based state. In Alberta and with Brexit, and remember Brexit really took off, is about grievance. It's about anger. It's about the way that they feel that they've been treated in this federation. So there's no kind of identity element. I mean, there are certain identity elements in Alberta, but not like it is in Quebec, not like it is in Scotland. It is really more about that question of, we need to do this in order for you to take us seriously. And so that to me is a combustible type of a situation more than the identity one.
Great perspective. When we come back, we're going to finish up talking to Darrell Bricker, CEO of IPSOS. So we're going to talk more about Carney versus Trump and some of those issues and how Canadians perceive the future of Canadian-U.S. trade. But first, I want to tell you about FP Genetics brings new seed genetics to Canadian farms, empowering growers to thrive in ever-changing conditions. Visit fpgenetics.ca to find out more. Back with more of RealAg Radio right after this.
While some cereal growers believe a pre-seed or spring application of paradigm-free herbicide is better, others think you get more from a fall application. But what they both agree on is the exceptional broadleaf control of paradigm-free, the convenience of being able to apply in cooler conditions, and its role as an effective resistance management tool. Paradigm-free. Eliminate tough broadleaf weeds before they can become bigger problems. Talk to your local retailer today.
If you're applying a low-rate N stabilizer, you might be falling for a losing strategy. Low-rate products promise great results, but may lack the potency of higher active ingredient concentrations, so great isn't always what you get. Don't put yield at risk. Put your trust in proven solutions. Anval Nitrogen Stabilizer, Super U Premium Fertilizer, and Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. These products offer higher active ingredient concentrations imitator brands can't match. See the difference at defendyourn.ca.
Questions about the markets? Sanoa by GrainFox is your AI grain market analyst, ready 24/7 to help you make smarter grain marketing decisions. Ask about market trends, pricing signals, basis, or what today's moves mean for you, and get clear, instant answers. Get a free trial and special savings at grainfox.ca/realag. grainfox.ca/realag. Ask Sanoa. Get an answer. Take action. It's that easy. Get started now.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. CDC Evident Durum from Alliance Seed is the clear choice for plant 2026. It delivers high grain yield, strong disease resistance, and excellent end-use suitability. With CDC Evident, you'll set a new standard for durum performance, and who doesn't love pasta? Learn more at allianceseed.com, or you can call 877-270-2890. We're joined here by Darrell Bricker of IPSOS, CEO of IPSOS, I should say. Darrell, let's focus a little bit more on the Trump factor. Of course, we talked about how President Trump and the 51st state comments and really pushing back hard on Canada really fit in very well with Prime Minister Carney forming government. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here with this? Economically, Canada needs the U.S. Prime Minister Carney's talking about that relationship is over. He had the Middle Powers speech at Davos. How does it sit with you?
I think he has a plan to deal with some of these things, and part of that plan is being able to diversify our trading relationships. But those things don't happen fast, and they don't happen at maybe the volume we need them to happen. So I think he's obviously trying to deal with that situation, and as we discussed before, I think it's the part of the job he enjoys. He's certainly on the question of sovereignty when it comes to defense. Have decided that we're going to spend a lot more money on defense. Exactly what we're going to do with the more money that we're spending is an open question, but there are people working on that. But again, not something that changes immediately. It's going to take some time to get that into place. We are in a situation in which the American political circumstances are quite volatile. I don't think we've seen anything yet. Yeah. I think as we move into the midterm elections, if you take a look at the polling information in the United States right now, including our own polls for Reuters and others at Ipsos, Donald Trump's approval levels are below the level that he needs, because it ultimately, regardless of who your congressman or woman is in the United States, I mean, the House is all up and a third of the Senate is up for election, and a bunch of important governor's races and other things. The name on the ballot is Donald Trump. I mean, you really can't avoid that. And the numbers are not looking great for him right now.
You look at what happened last week in Texas, major turnaround. And I can't remember whose poll it was, but the number that sticks in my head is about 85% chance that the House flips to the Dems, and about a 30% chance, so really lower, because it's only a third of the Senate, that the Senate would flip to the Democrats. Trump not on the ticket, but like you said, the vote's all about Trump.
Yeah, but the minute that the Democrats get control of the House, they can impeach Trump. And because you impeach them in the House and you try them in the Senate. I mean, we've been through this with Donald Trump
I feel like we've been down this road before.
Yeah. So I mean, then that becomes a complete distraction. And what happens when you are distracted by domestic issues? Well, then doing things and try to rally people around the flag from a foreign policy perspective makes some sense. And he's got his whole manifest destiny type of approach to what do you call it? The Dunroe doctrine.
Yeah, the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, the Western Hemisphere approach. I mean, there's something there that might happen. Giving Canada a kick in a period like that when it's very volatile. Maybe that's something that's that looks interesting in terms of distraction from the domestic political situation. So I would say it's very uncertain. Potential for volatility is high. And as we move closer to the midterm elections, we should be getting very concerned.
Yeah, and of course, Ipsos does a lot of work in the U.S. in political polling.
Worldwide, actually.
Yeah, what is your polling telling you that the Democrats have to do in order to right their own ship? Because they're not on some sort of, they've had their own challenges and not exactly a perfect path here. Because it's interesting. What I found fascinating is that why the Democrats don't do what Mark Carney did. Just find the center.
Yeah, Mark Carney really didn't do that. The center,
okay, that's fair.
The center found him. I mean, no, Mark Carney was at it's entirely around an issue and entirely around a challenge that's facing the country. There's not, he's not a hearts and minds guy. He's not something, he's more like Stephen Harper that way. In fact, I've heard people suggest that he's, kind of running a Stephen Harper tribute band in the sense that he always moved away from a lot of the stuff that Trudeau was doing in terms of his identity agenda and his environment agenda and the rest of it. But that he's kind of locked himself more into the pattern that Stephen Harper had, where it was kind of less about showing off and more about trying to make things just work a bit better. And Harper, it was interesting. People never gave him style points, but they gave him competence points. Carney's trying to get both. I mean, the whole Davos thing was really about that. But as you do things like that, you have to remember that you've got one member of your audience who's incredibly important and might not react the way that you want him to react.
Yeah.
And as we saw, he stood up in Davos and basically said he didn't like what was said, and he referred to him as Governor Carney again. So we're right back to where we were. So this is the type of unpredictability that I think that Carney's confronting, and things that he really can't control. I mean, the level of leverage that we have in dealing with the United States, I know some people like to get quite stroppy about the things that we can do, but everything that we can do to them, they can do back to us worse. Right. So it's a very difficult circumstance.
Yeah. Did you see both former Prime Ministers Stephen Harper and John Chrétien?
I saw clips from it. Yeah.
Okay. Reaction?
Well, both of them were are very similar. I mean, Chrétien was never an ideological actor. He was really more of a transactional type prime minister, been around the political system for a long time. Basically, he won not because he was winning hearts and minds, but because his opposition fell apart. But he was able to make that work really well for him. I mean, back in, 1996, I mean, he only won 37% of the vote. I mean, so he wasn't like an overwhelming, huge favorite among Canadians. It's just the way the seats broke because of what was going on the opposition side of the House. He won. But again, he wasn't really a hearts and minds guy, although he tried in the 95 referendum. He was actually a bit more like Harper, who was more of a transactional actor. The difference between the two of them was Harper definitely had more of an ideological predisposition, and Chrétien had more of a kind of mainstream transactional type of a presentation. Both of them at the time, very appealing to Canadians. Neither one of them had huge endorsements from the public. Like they weren't, there wasn't adulation for them like there was, say, for example, for Justin Trudeau or for his father, or interestingly enough, for Brian Mulroney. But it's interesting, the politicians that tend to attract the adulation end up going down the hardest, right? And Jean Chrétien got booted out by his party, but never lost an election.
Right.
And then the guy that booted him out won a minority against somebody, Stephen Harper, who nobody could imagine possibly as prime minister. And then the Liberals lose the next three elections until they elect the next rock star. And the next rock star leaves in the same level of, because I remember when Trudeau went out of office, people hated his guts. I mean, things have changed since then. Yeah. This is Trudeau the senior. But then, and because Brian Mulroney ended up taking advantage of that and getting 50% of the vote, there's nobody even close to 50% of the vote anymore. And then Justin comes in and he does a bit better. I mean, he gets just over 40 and wins the national election, which is great. But his numbers go through the roof and he's all sorts of hope and change and all the rest of it. And he goes out on a rail. And Brian Mulroney was the same. I mean, I remember people wearing, buttons, which was, Elvis would get more votes. More people think Elvis is alive than would vote for Brian Mulroney. So these guys who win based on this, hearts and minds and, very inspirational type of approach to politics, in Canada at least, have had a very hard ride out in the modern period.
Fascinating.
Whereas the people who are more kind of less ambitious when it comes to popularity, more focused on the transactions of the job, more focused on getting things done, tend to do better. And both Chrétien and long answer to a question, Chrétien and Harper were very much in that stream. Carney's very much in that stream.
He's just like that too.
Yeah.
That's very fun.
They tend to do better.
There's a couple of things I want to hit on before we let you go, and I appreciate the time. A lot of times we focus on older Canadians. Let's talk about younger Canadians.
Sure.
And how they see the future of the country. And you had a staggering stat up on the screen in regards to young Canadians that see better opportunity outside of the country.
49% under the age, I think it was of 19 to 24, or something like that, or it might have been 30.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. But remember, a lot of them are also the children of immigrants or people who immigrated into the country. And the other thing that you see is a very high percentage of people who, and this was based on our exit poll, so these are people who are citizens, because you have to be a citizen to vote. A very high number of people who are more recently citizens in Canada also thinking of leaving. So yeah, we've got a stickiness problem.
Because they don't see economic opportunity, or what's
Canadian promise is not working out for them. Canadian and so if you look at the research that's been done with immigrants, has Canada been what you thought it was going to be? And for a lot of them, the answer is no. It hasn't been what they thought it was going to be.
Is there a pattern of where they're going to?
Well, they all basically go to the major cities. I mean,
when they leave, we don't really know that.
We don't. We do know they may return to their previous country. A lot of them would like to go to the States. But we have a stickiness problem with our younger Canadians, particularly our most talented ones, and with immigrants that move here, the ones that we needed to replace basically the burst that we didn't have.
Drive that GDP. Let's finish up. One of the things in Breaking Point, your latest book, I encourage everybody to grab it and read it.
Say that twice.
Exactly. In Breaking Point, you mentioned about the future of farmland, that we need to deal with the house. And I'm paraphrasing, but I'll let you explain it. Urban sprawl is fine. If it takes over farmland, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Explain yourself on that point.
Well, because if you look at the kinds of houses that people want to live in, they're not, stacked towers downtown. They want to live on their own patch, with their own driveway, their own, fenced backyard where their kids and their pets can play. And that is the achievement of middle class prosperity in Canada. And that's what we aspire to. If that means that there's some marginal farmland that's around cities and that kind of thing, like green belts and that, sprawl baby sprawl is what we say in the book, because that's what people want. And they're not going to be satisfied unless they get it. And, as far as, this idea that we're going to need all of this farmland to feed 11 billion people that are going to exist on the face of the earth. First of all, there's never going to be 11 billion people.
No.
We're going to be lucky if we hit 9. And the second thing is farming has become so much more efficient these days that you don't need all of that land for farming. Now, great, it would be nice, if our farming, particularly our food and our dairy and those kinds of things, were close to the cities in which they were going to be consumed. But we can afford to move in a little bit further out. Now, the people who have the hardest problem with this, biggest problem, will not be the farmers. They'll be the urban planners who have a view of how our cities should develop that's completely contrary to the way that most people who want to live in those areas want to live. Yeah. So they want us to endure the housing that they plan, as opposed to living in the kinds of places that we aspire to. And that's where we've got a really big, we talked about cleavages in this country, it's another big cleavage. And how are people responding? They're moving out of the cities and they're moving to the suburbs.
We've been talking to Darrell Bricker, CEO of IPSOS. Darrell, thanks so much for joining us here today, and it was great to chat with you again.
My pleasure.
Great stuff. We're back on RealAg Radio right after this.
For oat growers across the Canadian prairies, CDC Endure is the milling oat built to deliver. From Manitoba to Alberta, CDC Endure brings together what prairie producers demand: high grain yield, excellent disease resistance, and the standability needed to handle prairie conditions with the consistency that processors and growers both rely on. Whether you're pushing for top-end yield or premium quality, CDC Endure is ready to perform across the prairies. Learn more at allianceseed.com or call 1-877-270-2890. Since 2009, the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has been providing relevant and timely agronomic advice to anyone involved in canola production. With over 15 years of video content on YouTube, the Canola School has been producers' go-to source for canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. The Canola School is brought to you by BASF and InVigor Hybrid Canola. Check us out on YouTube or at canolaschool.com.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio for a product spotlight with Corteva. And we're joined right now by Corteva's portfolio marketing manager for seed applied technology. It is Chad Garrod. How are we doing today, Chad?
Great, Shaun. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the show here. So early season disease often, well, I think a lot of times it kind of goes unnoticed until later in the year, and then we got to kind of be a little bit more reactive. Why is protecting cereals right at germination so critical to final yield and quality at the end of the day?
Great question. We got to win the start. Otherwise, it's an uphill battle, as you said, throughout the rest of the season. Across North America, we lose about 50 million bushels to diseases, specifically root and stem diseases each year. So we got to protect that germination right off the bat, because that determines our population, what determines our head count, kernel count, and that's yield at the end of the day. So
if we continue kind of on this line of thought, when we're deciding on a seed treatment, and like how you put that, win the start, what field or seeding conditions should growers consider and prioritize in their crop management plan then?
Yeah. So number one, you got to start with quality seed. First and foremost, that's always going to be before you even hit the field. Obviously getting it clean, tested, knowing what you have going in, getting it treated. Lewis and Lux starts protecting your seed from the moment it's treated, specifically against those seed-borne diseases. But then we come to the field, and that's when the soil-borne diseases take effect too. So then it's looking at what's been the field history, crop rotation, when's the last time, a cereal was there, residue management, because we know those diseases carry year to year from the residue. And then weather conditions are definitely a factor, but I'd say weather conditions really just change what diseases will be the most prevalent in that season. They're there throughout the season. It just, those can either get worse or get better pending that weather. So, whether it's early or late, you need to protect that from the start.
So two of the challenges we deal with when we're getting that crop off to a good start is Fusarium and Rhizoctonia. Why are they such persistent challenges in cereal crops as we're trying to establish that stand?
Yeah, so those ones are pretty much almost always present, specifically throughout Western Canada in particular. We see Fusarium, and it's a kind of something we got to manage throughout the season as well, not just at the start. So, you think back to the start when the crop's the most vulnerable, it's trying to germinate. Protection is critical. That's because it's going from think about that seed. It's trying to imbibe water, push through the soil, and that's when it's changing. It's using nutrients from the seed itself to the root. So such a vulnerable time. So we've got all the diseases attacking it. At that stage, protection is critical. But then throughout the remaining of the year, back to Fusarium, it really does attack year round. Fusarium head blight, late season diseases, other leaf diseases that attack the seed, that goes right back around to, starting with good quality seed. But that's where a product like Talbec Pro, our new Group 21, comes in, giving that Adavelt advantage to the full season control. So it's not just at the start. We got to manage some of these diseases through the entire season.
Yeah, what was that? What was the product again? Just so we make sure we don't.
Talbec Pro.
Okay.
Talbec Pro, new Group 21.
Nice.
Great product.
Now, when we think about the whole entire crop production plan, how does a seed treatment actually fit into that? like, and I think you've a little bit hit on the why here, but I want to kind of reinforce that, because I think for a lot of growers, it's like, I use a seed treatment when, the ground's cold and maybe it's a little bit wet. But as we get through the season, soil warms up a little, or get through the spring, soil warms up a little bit. I don't need it anymore. I think the data shows that's not exactly true, but just kind of address some of those things.
Yeah. So, we provide farmers a tool to get the crop off to the best start possible, as we said. The challenge for farmers is the season. We're not sure what it's going to bring. As you said, whether it's how to maximize yield, one of the things everyone says, seed earlier, right? So whether you do that, or it's later, we've seen the yield benefits throughout early to late seeding. So a farmer's job is to protect that yield. So this gives you a tool to do that. Lumicin Luxe provides the best and broadest protection, no matter what the season brings, because we don't know what it's going to bring, and all our trials across Western Canada, as we brought this product forward and getting it to market, we saw a 6 bushel advantage over current treatments, not the untreated acre.
Wow.
So pretty significant performance from whether it's being early, cool and wet, potentially later, hot and dry. We need to protect that seed year round. But it's not just thinking about those diseases. Insects seem like they're more and more prevalent. You think of like wireworms are definitely coming and being a regular pest, cutworms and grasshoppers as well too. So it's not just about the disease protection. What insect protection are you going to pair with that as well? So Lumivia CPL gives you the broadest protection. So when you put these two products together, it makes it easy to choose them, easy to use them from the way you use them in a treater. But it just gives you the peace of mind that you've got the best and broadest protection, no matter what that season's going to bring.
Now, Chad, it's the first week of February. Spring is upon us, whether we like it or not. We got to be prepared. If I want more information on some of the things you chatted about here today, where do I go?
Yeah. Contact your local Corteva TM or your local retail. Definitely available for this season. We've got our handy Corteva Canada Field Guide app from your app store. And then, of course, our Canadian site, Corteva.com.
Really appreciate it. Chad, thanks a lot, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having us on the show today.
We'll be right back on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, right after this quick break.
Time to get excited about your fields again thanks to Excite Bio Yield Plus. It's a phosphate-solubilizing ag biological that works on oilseeds, cereals, and legumes. For 15 years, we've been helping farmers achieve healthier plants and higher yields with our premium liquid inoculants. For more information on Excite Bio Yield Plus or one of our other premium products, call 1-855-948-3246 or visit excitebio.ca. That's XITEBIO.ca. At Excite Bio, inoculants and ag biologicals, it's all we do.
Whether you're running a farm operation, in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, operating a company in ag or food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag and food together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Calgary on March 8th, 9th, and 10th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
With deep roots in agriculture, MMP's farm management consulting team helps farm businesses make confident decisions for long-term success. From strategic planning to operational growth, MMP advisors guide farms through challenges and opportunities. Contact MMP today, no matter where you are in Canada, to build a stronger future. Learn more at mmp.ca. Big news out of one of North America's largest fertilizer manufacturers and ag retails. We're really one of the world's largest, and it is Nutrien. And we're joined right now to discuss the big news that is out there. It is Chris Reynolds. He's the Executive Vice President of Global Sales with Nutrien. Chris, it is great to chat with you.
Thanks, Shaun. Great to be here. Thanks for the time.
Now, big news here for Nutrien. You're bringing the businesses together here, wholesale and retail. Talk about this big change.
Yeah, no, we're really excited, Shaun. And I maybe just to rewind a little bit back to, the forming of Nutrien, and as you mentioned at the start there, the bringing together of the world's largest fertilizer producer in combination with the world's largest ag solution provider. And I think what we're seeing here is just in this organizational change is an evolution of that, and probably a a realization of the full value of that combination as it was originally the original vision of bringing the two companies together there back in 2018. So, yeah, as you said, and it's nothing really that revolutionary, I would say, if you look across whether it's agriculture or other industries, bringing, the two channels that we have in terms of go-to-market between wholesale and retail together under one leadership team. And so that's what we're doing here as of January 1 was when this sort of became effective. And, at the end of the day, Shaun, it's about, how do we continue to offer the best value to our customers, whether that's our 500,000 grower customers we service through our retail channel, or just as importantly, the fertilizer customers we supply through the wholesale and third-party customers we deal with every day. And so, we think there's synergistic benefits there. There's efficiency benefits. There's definitely reliability benefits there of bringing the two channels under one leadership, and then bringing to bear, the full scale of the Nutrien network, and be happy to talk more about that. But we just think this change just increases the value offering that Nutrien can provide to our customers, whichever way you choose to do business with Nutrien.
Now, yeah, I want to get to how it impacts some of the stakeholders, because there's multi-layers to this. And I guess first, thinking about the Real Agriculture audience, what does the farmer see?
Yes.
Are there differences for the farmer in this change?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, the day-to-day interaction with our grower customers is not going to change in terms of the people that are going to be calling on them, the trusted relationships they have today with Nutrien. That is not going to change. Maybe the only change, and part of the reason we're doing this, is just going to increase the service level and the quality of service that those interactions entail. And so whether it's through bringing to bear new proprietary products that we're bringing onto the marketplace under the Loveland Products brand, whether it's technology, innovation, better decision support for those growers, but also the confidence with which those crop consultants or agronomists are going to go onto that farm with those growers, the confidence they're going to have making a recommendation because of the supply chain horsepower that we have behind every single one of those 4,000 agronomists that are out there working with our customers. That's the exciting part for me in terms of bringing that to bear as we think about the offering going forward for our grower customers directly, but also just as importantly for our fertilizer wholesale customers as well. I mean, we've got 27 million tons of production here. We're talking about between nitrogen, phosphate, and potash derivative products that is distributed through, I would, unbiasedly claim is the strongest distribution network in the countryside. And Shaun, I don't have to tell you or your listeners or viewers about, supply chain challenges we've had over the past decade, whether it's COVID, whether it's weather, whether it's policy, whatever it is. We've learned the hard way that you've got to have some redundancy in that supply chain to weather some of those challenges to make sure that product gets where it's needed for our customers. And though that's what we've learned and that's what we've invested in.
Yeah, I expected you to say that about the farmer. What came to my mind is there's potentially greater impacts for those third-party wholesale customers, or how do you separate church and state, so to speak? Because in the former structure, it was, Nutrien Ag Retail is just as much a customer to the wholesale business as retail chain XYZ.
Right.
How do you maintain that now?
Yeah, so we're still going to have two distinct sales teams calling on those distinct channels, Shaun. And so again, we've got some really experienced folks in both channels that is going to be maintained. And so really, it's more back office changes and sort of things that as I said, the front line, our customer, again, whether it's the wholesale customer, retail customer, is not going to feel. If anything, it's just going to enhance the reliability and the service we bring to both channels. And so, I know that there could be some concern about information and data sharing. All of that remains sacrosanct and cordoned off in terms of those two distinct channels and go to market. So none of that changes. I've been in this industry, Shaun. I've been with Nutrien over 20 years now. I've been in the fertilizer industry for close to 25 years. And what has struck with me through all of that time is that the most important asset we have is the relationship with the customer. And if you break that trust it takes a long time to rebuild. And so that's what we're going to be laser focused on here going forward. Nothing's going to change in that regard, how much we value those relationships.
You mentioned the front line, and Nutrien is really on the front line with those farmer customers right now across Canada and the United States.
Yes.
And farm profitability and weak margins is top of mind for them.
Yes.
How do you see this change in structure providing benefit to them to assist them in a time here where things are not lofty from a margin perspective? So talk about that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, that's absolutely top of mind for us as well, Shaun, in terms of, and this isn't just, the year we've just come out of in 25, but it's probably been a couple of years that those grower margins have been really, really tight. And so I think for me, as I think about that and the challenges that our growers are going to be facing, I think now again in 2026, as we face this growing season, is the value of having a trusted advisor who knows the history of your operation, who can make that recommendation to really drive home that yield outcome that grower is looking for. And so, again, you bring to that table as we're making those decisions in partnership with our growers. I just think we're going to be bringing an even higher value offering in terms of the resources, data, information technology, weather. I think Eric Snodgrass, one of the best atmospheric scientists in the business. He's part of our team as well. And so when that crop consultant sits down with that grower at the kitchen table and starts to devise a plan for the upcoming year, they're going to bring to that table, the full power of Nutrien, all of our resources, our data, our analytics, the history of their operation, and help them make that decision that's going to optimize their yield. And so success for me in all this, Shaun, is going to be come December and when that crop is in the bin, so to speak, did we achieve that outcome? Did we achieve the most optimal and profitable outcome for that grower? So I think that's what's most exciting in terms of this change. And it's just elevating the experience, elevating that level of customer service for those growers.
One of the things I've always said is so unique and I think fascinating about agriculture is that there are so many different options and ways for the farmer to build their business plan, right? There's tons of shapes and sizes across all the different geographies and the different commodities that are being produced. You're going through this big change internally, but at the same time, you're trying to meet the real changing needs across the farm size scale, just to name one differences amongst all the farms, remind all the other ones. How do you can you be all things to all of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's unique about Nutrien, Shaun. I mean, you talk about, again, like I said, 27 million tons of, fertilizer production across the three major nutrients. And you think about then the distribution we have. We've got 1,200 retail sites, but then just before that sort of frontline distribution, you have then a network of warehouses and tanks that help supply that. And so, I think that we can be global in nature in terms of our scale and the logistics that we offer, but then very local in nature as well in terms of that Nutrien agronomists driving onto the farm and bringing with them the technology and the decision support to help that grower make the decision, knowing that right behind them is this powerhouse of logistics and production and technology and proprietary products. We're going to be bringing out 26 new proprietary products this year, 25, 26 under the Loveland name. So, we're moving, we're evolving, we're bringing scale to that grower, which, as you rightly point out, the scale of that grower is changing as well. I mean, the amount of decisions that grower has to make continues to increase. The level of risk that they face in their operation continues to increase. The uncertain environment, whether it's the macroeconomy they're operating in, what government policy is doing, all of these pressures and forces that are on that operation. How can we go in and make their life easier? How can we come in with some ideas and help? I really like the term decision support. How can we support them in terms of the decisions they have to make? Because, Shaun, the pressures on these growers just continues to increase, and we want to make their life easier.
And you mentioned the proprietary products under Loveland, where I was going to ask you about that. I appreciate you covering that. One of the other thoughts I had, though, from a business side of the equation is finance. And so, a lot of farmers are going to their financial institutions. Some are having good conversations. Some are having tougher ones. Do you see a big expansion of the Nutrien finance program in this kind of market? And if so, how do you also manage the risk side of the equation for you, given there's risk in this low margin time? Yeah, no, it's a great question, Shaun. As you know, we have built up that financial side of our sort of total solution offering, and that's been really exciting for us to be able to sit down at that table and have that conversation with the grower to include financing to help with that decision. But we're also focused. You're right. There's risk-based decisions that need to be made as we think about helping growers with their financing, and we've got a team of experts that do that, and pleased to say that we've had some really good experience up to this point in terms of that, what we think is a new product offering from Nutrien in terms of helping growers finance that crop. And through a risk-adjusted lens for both sides. And so we want to make sure we make good decisions for the grower, but also make good decisions for Nutrien in terms of taking on some of that risk. And again, we've got a team of experts that look at that every single day to make sure we're making those good decisions. Chris, I'm curious, and I don't want this to be a softball question, so don't take it that way. Yeah. What does success look like? If 5 years out, Wall Street, farmers, look at this structural change, bringing these two entities together. Yeah. What does success look like? Yeah, it's a great question. I've thought a lot about that, Shaun. I think what success looks like is that Nutrien becomes or maintains its reputation as being a reliable and trusted source of information that's helping growers make better decisions for their operations. And so I think we have that standing today. And, it's what sort of I'm inheriting here and making sure I keep that standing with Nutrien as that trusted brand that's walking that acre with the grower and ensuring that they do feel like Nutrien is not just pushing their products or pushing a product range that's advantageous for Nutrien. It's genuinely and authentically advising that grower on what that acre needs to maximize its potential. And so I think if 5 years from now, if you interviewed a batch of customers today and then you interviewed them in 5 years' time, they would say that Nutrien delivered what they promised. They have been that trusted advisor. They've been that unbiased trusted advisor, and they've helped me maximize the potential of my operation. And so I think if reflection in 5 years' time, that for me would be success. Nutrien and the association that the Nutrien brand has with being a trustworthy advisor. Any changes? You mentioned proprietary products and love, but any changes on the seed side of the equation? Proven, Dynagrow, is there any changes there at all? We've got some new products coming through the pipeline there as well, Shaun. So we're working on that right now. Like all of our shelves, incredibly competitive space. Yep. And so we need to make sure we keep proving our worth and proving to our growers that those brands are their best option. But we've got some products coming down the pipeline there as well. How do you manage that between your own proprietary brands, where you've got a capital investment and innovation, research funds that are going to that? You're looking for an ROI of those proprietary brands and products. But you've also got shelf space, like as we said, we put it in like a sort of a hardware store sort of context. You've only got so much shelf space, so much time, and so much knowledge your sales people have internally. Talk about all these different products. How do you manage the balance between the proprietary and the third-party products that farmers also want access to? Yeah, no, and it comes back to that solution. Like, what is the optimal solution for that acre? And we are very, very intentional with our agronomists and our certified crop advisors that they need to recommend the products, whether it's Nutrien's product or someone else's, that's the best for that acre. And so, and you can ask any one of our agronomists. We are not artificially pressuring our frontline salespeople to recommend a solution that is not optimal for that grower, because Shaun, that's so short term. I mean, these growers are very smart business people, and they're going to see through that straight away. And so again, it comes back to what I said, reflecting on, say, 5 years from now, if we haven't
advise what the optimal solution is. That total solution for that acre, no matter what the product is, it's got to be right for that acre. What's happened to that acre because of the data that we have, maybe over the last 4 or 5 years, and what does that grower want to produce from that acre going forward, taking all that information collectively and making the best recommendation. And so, it's a great question, Shaun. We have that on a number of occasions. How can you have Loveland products living side by side with other branded products on your shelf of offering? It's like, hey, we see that as a huge advantage to have the choice, that our agronomists have that choice between a range of our own products, but also a full suite of products from other suppliers to, as I said, honestly and authentically recommend the best solution for that acre. And they can do that with, the best product offering in the business.
Not to get too Fox Business, CNBC kind of interview like on you, but things that come to mind when we see these kinds of these combinations happen with entities. People attrition attached to this, and is there any sort of synergistic savings, or those are the kind of questions that Wall Street would be asking, and I'm not Wall Street, but I'm curious.
We're not immediately. No, that sort of headcount reduction, things like that has not been the driving force behind this change. Efficiency, reliability, really being able to offer the best solution for our grower customers or our third-party wholesale customers. That's the lens through which all of this has been driven. This is not because Nutrien is under tremendous financial pressure and needs to cut our headcount. That's not the driving force here. Now, as we go forward, and again, as farming operations get larger, so you've got maybe less farmers that are being called on in the future. Does that require a different looking sales force? Maybe, but that's not what we're focused on right now.
Chris, thank you so much for this time here to describe kind of what's at work here and the strategy behind it. I really do appreciate it and trying to shed some light on it for our Real Agriculture audience across Canada and the United States. Thank you so much. All the best to you, and I look forward to our next chat.
Appreciate it, Shaun. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
Curious what you think of what we just heard there from Chris Reynolds at Nutrien, as they're putting Nutrien Ag Retail and Nutrien back together, and would like your feedback on what the impact of this. Do you think that this aligns Nutrien to the customer experience in a better way, or do you have concerns about it? Really want to hear from you, the Real Agriculture audience. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call or text the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. We also had a really interesting conversation there with Darrell Bricker, the CEO of IPSOS, about definitely some trends and things to be, I guess, optimistic about, but also quite concerned about from a Canadian and North American perspective. What's your feedback on that as well? That's it here from Cambridge, Ontario. Thanks so much, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Nashville, Tennessee.
Thank you for downloading this RealAg Radio podcast, brought to you by the Authority brand family of herbicides from FMC. With 3 options for extended pre-seed and pre-emergent weed control, Authority herbicides help growers start clean and stay ahead. Visit your local FMC retailer to find the Authority herbicide solution that fits your farm.